What's up, y'all? We'll do something with Frank the guitar for a little intro. Dude. Unorthodox. Per usual. So, today is the 29th of January, 2025. My name is Evan Strong, the founder of In the Image Clothing Company. This is In the Image Clothing Company podcast, where we have discussions on the gospel of Jesus Christ. As a whole, our company, In the Image Clothing Company, is centered and founded on the gospel of Jesus Christ because we are all universally designed in the image of our living God. And that's where our name comes from, right? Jesus the Christ. The gospel of Jesus Christ is the truth of all things. Don't believe me, right? I don't need anybody to care really what I say or think or believe, but I don't believe in anything. So ideally, we can all know the truth. And this episode here is episode 49 of In the Image Clothing Company podcast. It's titled, There Is Only One Way. And I'll get into that. First, I'll do a little rundown on the company and a couple of things about clothing, and then we'll move on with this episode. So, 3 sides to us. This side, then we also have In the Image Clothing Company music with all things music, setups of instruments to allow the human body to just work while we do play music, and positions of the body while we sing or do anything that we do approaching music. I also make music on that side of our company. And then we have the main side of In the Image Clothing Company, discussions on the anatomy of the human body, how to just allow, keyword, the human body to work through mostly clothing. The body's about the skeletal system. It's not about the fat content that comes and goes. It changes at different times in our lives. And so does the muscle mass, the amount of actual physical muscle size that we have. So it's about a natural position that is determined by our foundation. Like within the gospel, a firm foundation on Jesus Christ. Within our bodies, a firm centered foundation through the body's structural system is how we're going to allow it to operate. So because of that, we focus mostly on clothing because it's the only thing that's actually physically placed on our bodies. There's nothing else. Because even the things that we put into our pockets, we think about those things sometimes and how it's uncomfortable to have certain things placed there. Well, they're placed into your clothing pockets. It is about clothing. Shoes, right? All the things that we place onto us physically. Now, because of that, we are universally designed, as we established, and don't believe me on that, but that's how it is. So across the entirety of the globe, our Earth that we have been given, we are all the same. We always will be. We always have been. So the patternings that we get into, these physical imbalances and universal patternings, as we discuss within In the Image Clothing Company, are the same everywhere, forever, for every human. And they happen because of clothing, and we get out of these patternings and we just get the body back to the only way that it works, because the human body actually only has one way that any part of it operates. It's just a machine in all the ways that it is. So our pants need to be entirely above the hips so that the hip bones, meaning the pelvis, the femurs, the legs, right, come into the hips, and the hips have all their natural ranges of motion and mobility. When that waistline's above them and slightly higher in the front than in the rear, because our core needs to always be, as it would naturally be, activated, turned on, contracted, working to stabilize the body from the center of us up and from the center of us down. That's just how it would always work unless there was anything that was altering it. But it's common for things to be altering it in 2025. So clothing. Now, the tops that we wear, the seams on top of our shoulders need to sit evenly behind those little bones that are up there, because those are the other end of our collarbones. And that will just allow the shoulders to be in their neutral position, sitting behind our bodies where they naturally would. And then ideally just right at the very edges of our shoulders is where we keep those edge seams of the shoulders, because that's how the shoulders will just be allowed to move because that's where they move. Now, in addition to just allowing clothing to fit and sit on the body the only way that it actually does anything, the Image Clothing Company has 2 prerequisites that we share to allow the body to be further unaltered. The first one is to lace the shoes that we wear within the Image Clothing Company's shoelacing technique. All that technique does is just allow the shoe to be shaped the way that the human foot is shaped. With that, we tie our shoes evenly over toward the inside to the center of our body. There's your even foundation on both feet. And then secondly, we remove all tags anywhere within clothing, even in the shoes. They're causing unnatural gaps. They're doing things to the body, not allowing the muscles to activate against them, changing the position. The skeletal system will be trying to connect, and it only does that in one way. So, yes, all over. Even within the shoes, as I mentioned, because it'll either affect the dorsiflexion or plantar flexion of the ankle or the natural gripped arches within our feet, and then that's what's supporting the rest of you, and so the rest of your body could be very much altered if your feet and ankles are. Okay, cool, great, awesome. Now, the reason why this episode is titled what it is because there is only one way. I'm going to get into this. We're going to approach this on multiple ends, talking about multiple different things, but it's the case. It's the truth, as I say, the truth of all things, the gospel of Jesus Christ. Don't believe me. I can't determine what's true. I can't decide for myself what's true. Truth is truth for every human from the beginning till the end, and there is none of either of those two things. So there we go. When we talk about things in life, a lot of times we want to be right. A lot of times we have our ways of doing things, and that person has their ways of doing things. But there's things in life that there's only one way that's actually correct. And there really is. That might seem like a shock, but again, don't believe me. It's not because I think that I have the right answers, but it's because whether I believed it or not, these things are what they are. Okay, now that I've sat on that for a second, let's get into it. Because something like shoelacing, right? I'm going to get into a lot. We're not just talking about clothing, right? This podcast is centered on gospel discussions, but I'm going to hit this from quite a few angles because there's only one way to cause a shoe to be shaped like the human foot when you put a rope in there and just weave a rope into a certain pattern through holes that we call shoelace eyelets. It's just become something, right? Before there was any shoes, there was no such thing as shoelaces, right? Before there was eyelets, there was no such thing. Before there was anything, there wasn't. And that's what I mean. I mean, stuff's just what it is, regardless of what we want to believe it is or label it as or anything. We don't get to determine it. Things are just what they are. So, right, in the Image Clothing Company's shoelacing technique, I'm going to do this a little bit unconventional. I started out this off saying unorthodox when I did the little intro with Frank the guitar. I'm going to stand up for about 10 seconds. I'm going to show both of my feet. And shout out to Zero Shoes, Xero. No affiliation, but, give them credit because I'm going to show the boots that I'm wearing. They're Denver's by Zero. I'm going to show the shoelace technique. I mean, we show it within the company and even within some of the earlier podcast episodes when I was sitting out in the field doing some of the episodes outside. You can see my shoes if you watch it in visual. If you're just listening in audio form, then you won't get to see this at this current moment. But I'm going to stand up. Check this out. Right foot and left foot. There you go. In the Image Clothing Company's shoelacing technique, right? It's not some kind of secret. It's just that on the podcast, you don't see it that often because I'm normally just in like this much of the frame. It's like my torso up, usually. So, The reason I show that is a little bit of documentation. Also, if you haven't seen other sides of the company, then maybe that's your first time seeing the shoelacing technique that is just the only shoelacing technique that exists that is shaped like the human foot. That's it. And that's why I started this episode off with that, because no matter who wants to believe anything about what they want to do with their shoelaces, nobody gets to decide how their foot operates. There's 20 something, 26 or 27 bones within the human foot, and a lot of joints between that. I mean, each one of those bones connects to another one, or else it wouldn't have any purpose to be there. And it only does it in the way that it does. And so that's why we have our shoelacing technique. There we go. That's a beautiful example, and that's why I love this company, because we don't have any kind of opinions, because we can't. Meaning, oh gosh, this is going to be a hard-hitting episode. I mean, I could say don't believe me every single time that I make any kind of piece of content, whether it's a minute or multiple hours long or anything that we ever put out for In The Image Clothing Company. And yeah, don't believe me, because there you go. That's how your foot is shaped. And you can be an Indian, you can be Chinese, you can be Korean, you can be from South Africa, you can be, I don't know how many I need to list, but you can be Russian, you can be anywhere from the earth is where you can come from. Mexican, you can be some kind of person from a part of the globe that seems so distant from the rest of the world or whatever, right? I mean, your foot is shaped that way. And I can tell you that, sitting here on this little floor of this bedroom in Utah, the United States of America. That's how it is, and that's how it will always be, because we're human beings. So that's what I mean. There is only one way with certain things in our lives, and it will never change. So, it's crazy. I've been watching TV, dude. How funny does that sound? And I'm really liking Alaska. That's another state within the United States of America, and they call it the last frontier. They call it that because it's a wilderness. It's different in different parts of it. It's a tempered rainforest, but it's also a desert, but it's frozen many tens of degrees below freezing for most of the winter, and their winters are like 9-ish months, and part of the year the sun doesn't even set. It just kind of like dips close to the horizon and comes back, and then the other part of the year it's like mostly dark the whole time because it's so far north on our earth. And they've got the northern lights. I don't know how you say it, but it's like aurora something. I don't actually know exactly how to say it, like the technical term for it. But yeah, I mean, I don't know exactly even what causes it, but like lights in the sky naturally. I don't know for sure as of right now how to even explain that, but you can look it up if you want, or I might discuss it more in the coming episodes of In The Image Clothing Company podcast, because it's really cool that our earth is just doing things like that without us, whether we were here or not, right? Universal truths, universal unchanging things that don't get determined by us prideful human beings who think that we're like running the world. No, we are not. So yeah, dude, I mean, well, we're kind of like running the quote unquote world, but the earth will just do all that it does without us, and debatably only better if we weren't here. So that's cool. Now, the thing with there is only one way is that there is with certain things, as I was discussing, where I said clothing needs to sit. I went over shoelaces. Yeah, there's only one way. Doesn't matter who you are, how old you are, how much experience you think you have, and whatever, how old you are. I said that twice because I think that happens as us human beings. We potentially, very highly potentially, this happens all the time. People will be like 60 years old and they'll talk to like a young 20-year-old kid, and I would consider myself a 20-year-old kid. I'm not like talking down on kids. We're all kids. That's the whole point. Is it doesn't matter how old you are. you're no wiser because of age. You're wise because of wisdom. You know, experience can make you wise, but you can also be like a 4-year-old child and be much more wise than the full-grown adults around you. Just depends on who you are, how much wisdom you actually hold. It's not about age at all. And so what's kind of annoying actually is to come across people who think that they just can do it however they want, whatever it is. But if it's one of those things like the things I'm discussing within this episode of In the Image Clothing Company podcast that only actually have one way that they really work, and you can maybe try to push through some other way and like kind of do that thing to a degree, but there actually really is only one way for, I'm going to focus on this still, shoes to be laced. It doesn't matter how old you are. You 70-year-old man, right? 70 years you've lived on this earth, let's say, and you've been tying shoes since you were just a kid. And some person comes up to you and they're like 10 and they tell you that you're tying your shoes wrong because you're tying them wrong. There is only one way. Is that crazy? Because if so, then cool, but that's really the truth. And so what I love to see is within the gospel of Jesus Christ, within the Book of Mormon specifically, it says there is no other way or name that mankind can be saved besides the name Jesus Christ. You don't got to believe it, but it's the truth. You don't got to believe that there's only one way to weave a rope across the top of your human flesh on your foot to allow it to just not be altered. But there is only one way, right? That's what I'm talking about. This is what In the Image Clothing Company is. Don't believe us, but here's some truth. I love it. So I was watching this show on Alaska. This beautiful show. Beautiful in the sense of this show is just a few different people in different parts of the state of Alaska in the United States of America. And it just films, well, the filmers, the videographers that filmed that people that I'm discussing that are in the show, we get to see their lives and they just live and do what they do. And, you know, you can see them, and well, I can see them. I've been watching them, is what I'm saying. And seeing their clothing and the way that it fits, I could imagine myself like stepping into their life. And they've been like doing what they're doing for 30 years, let's say. And that's older than I even currently am. And I go there, let's say, hypothetically, right? And I'm just like, look, you are wearing your clothing entirely incorrect. And they're like, how could you tell me? You don't even know how to, you live down there when it's, you know, so much warmer and you have this house and comfort and all these amenities. And I'm out here in absolutely freezing temperatures most of the year, they'll say, right? I've been doing this. You wouldn't even know a thing about it. But I do. It's not about me. But that's what I mean is there's only one way for certain things because it could be reversed, right? If I don't know something and I'm doing it a certain way and it's not actually the only correct way for that specific thing, and somebody comes into my life and tries to tell me how it is, but they're actually telling me how it is, and I'm trying to deny it, I can't. I mean, I can deny it all I want, but it doesn't change it. There's only one way to do certain things. Actually. Every opinion aside, like you got two people trying to like argue over something, both of their opinions can be entirely wrong because maybe neither of their opinions were the actual right way. That happens. And that's how you can kind of like see that there is a universal truth. There's only one truth that actually exists. That's what I'm talking about. That's what In the Image Clothing Company talks about. So, oh yeah, I love it. Because, you know, you're doing some things and they might be kind of working for you in ways, but they're not correct. And there is only one correct way. Because the whole thing is, I'm looking at these people and I've realized in my own life, because I live in Utah, as I said, and we actually get cold winters. It's not quite like Alaska, but we get cold winters. I mean, I was out there today and it was within the 30s Fahrenheit. And 32 degrees Fahrenheit is when it freezes, and then any colder than that is what we would consider below freezing temperatures. And during our winters, it definitely, for good portions of our winters, stays well below freezing the entire time for parts of it. And I've just noticed how much easier I can stay functioning as a human being. Again, the human body only functions the way that it does. It only has one way of doing everything that it does. And after I have now gotten my body to where it is through clothing, I don't get as cold as I did in the past because I couldn't even breathe if my body wasn't in the only position it breathes in, or as close to it as I can get in my own personal situation, right? And that's how it is for all of us, that last part that I said there. Because we're all individuals, and maybe there's certain things within your own body that actually are going to only be a certain way, right? Kind of a similar thing. But all that we can do, we have to, if we want things to just work the only way that they do. And so it's just, I was just envisioning like going up to Alaska to one of these older, experienced in the environment type of experienced men, for example. And I go up to him, just, one of the men who lives in Alaska, let's say. I mean, there's probably a lot of people who live up in Alaska. The point is, who am I, right, is what they're probably thinking, to tell them how to do something when I just popped into their environment and they're the ones that are experienced in the environment. Sure, yes, that is correct. But let's say like their shoelacing isn't. And we're not nitpicky about stuff. It's not like, hey, I got a company and I think it's cool to focus on certain things. It's, no, you only have one human body for the whole time you're a human being. And that's what determines a human being as that, is because it has one of these human fleshly bodies that's just a mechanical machine that only does what it does. And so, going up there and telling him that he's doing it wrong, I can say that bluntly and boldly, like, no, you're doing it wrong, regardless of what I want to believe or think or anything. There's only one way to do it, apart from all of us, right? Because none of us designed our feet. Our God did. The same one who is the only way that we can have eternal life, right? There's only one way. I don't got to believe it. Neither do you. But it can't change it. It's just what it is. There's only one way. So it's really cool. That's just such a bold thing. It is what it is. Truth is truth. I mean, these phrases that we say within the company, it's nothing to do with us, but it's the fact that we've been allowed to know them, and we want others to as well, because regardless of if you know it or not, it is what it is, and you can't change it. I can't change it. There's only one way. With certain things, that's just how it is. Forever. So, one thing is huge that is annoying that it has been this way is jean designs. People are going around with their pelvis being totally altered from, again, the only way that it connects, the only way that the spine connects down into the pelvis, the only way that the upper leg bones connect from the bottom up into the pelvis, the only way that every muscle connects into the pelvis, the glutes, the lats, we won't get into all of it, right? But the adductors, the abductors, the abdominal muscles, the way that they come down from the front, the whole body just comes to the center of it, which is the pelvis. And you've got this terribly uneven design within jeans. And jeans have been around for so long. And that's one of those things. There's only one way the human pelvis, which is the central thing that determines the entire body from there up and down, works. And jeans are not that way. As in, they don't allow it to be the only way that it is. So it's one of those kind of things similar to what I was saying with the shoelaces. I'm seeing these people on this TV show, right? I mean, it could be any TV show. It could be any human being. It could not even be a TV show. You could just walk up to the grocery store or the market or wherever you are on the earth, right? Anywhere, you see somebody wearing a pair of jeans. That item of clothing, that piece of fabric that has been sewn and stitched into something that can encapsulate a human's lower half, doesn't work for the only way their lower half works of their body as far as the hips down. It's things like that that's just crazy that it's even allowed to happen. As in, like, I don't know, I feel like a lot of times we just need to be, like, struck down from doing things that we shouldn't be doing and we've been doing for so long. It's that whole thing, like, how are we getting away with these things that we do? I was one of them, right? I always will be, in the ways that I am, one of those people doing one of those things that it's like, how am I allowed to? That's what I mean. It doesn't matter. I'm not condemning others. I'm just saying us as human beings, it's nuts that we can just do things that are so opposing the only way that that thing actually happens. It's very strange. So, yeah, there's only one way. Because we get the tendency to think that we're right about things, or to think that we've done it so many times, whatever it is that, like, we know, but it doesn't matter how many times we've done something, what we think we know, how right or wrong we think we or they are, whoever they could be, just being another human being. There's only one way with certain things like this. Guitar stringing techniques. There's only one way that you can actually string a guitar to not have your hands cramp. Right? Things that we talk about on In the Image Clothing Company music. It's very strange. I mean, it's just life, man. It's just what it is, dude. And that's the other thing with the show that I was noticing. One of the other things, drinking. We have an episode of In the Image Clothing Company podcast titled Hydration Truths. I think it's either episode 16 or 17. One of them was that, and the other one was Eating Truths. Eating. I didn't quite enunciate that so well. But, yeah. So, when we drink water, right? These people in Alaska, they're drinking water, but they're not going to get hydrated from water. And it's another one of those things. I could go up there and tell them whatever I want, but it's not about me. And so I don't expect you to believe me or even listen to me, but I have some truth for you that applies to you, and it is only this way forever. And so you can take it or leave it, but if you leave it, then you're just opposing the only way your body actually works. And I can tell you that, right? It is a strange thing because you're up there in negative degrees, just meaning colder than freezing temperatures for the majority of the year, and you're needing to stay hydrated just because you're a human being, and that's how the human flesh that we are operates, is by having enough hydration to it. And water doesn't hydrate you. Water is only used as a function, meaning it just does what it does within the body, but there's nothing that the body actually extracts from water. And so, you know, it's just weird. The other thing is the temperatures of things. You know, there's only one way to actually fully absorb food, and that's, you know, the only way that it is. And we discussed that within that episode that I referenced of the In the Image Clothing Company podcast. But the thing is, yeah, I mean, if they're drinking water, first of all, that's not going to help them very much because it'll just go right through them and it won't benefit them actually to a degree. Okay. But the other thing is, if it's not the same temperature as their body or very close to it, then the body is going to reject it, and it further just, you know, is not doing anything beneficial to a degree. And so, oh man, that's why this company's so huge. That's why it's hitting me so much. Today has been like a day where I've been kind of like stepped back in a good way. Like, yeah, this is huge. This is real. Here you go, kind of thing. Because this is getting kind of crazy how real it is. And That's awesome, dude. I mean, that's the point. That's why we are what we are. I say that phrase quite a lot within stuff that I make for the company because, yeah, every human to ever live, there's only one way for certain things to happen. And so I just love it within the gospel. You know, we're not, as Christians, we're not pushing a religion. We're not trying to convert somebody to a way of thinking or convince somebody to have some belief. But as I say, it's the truth of all things. We're just giving it to you because we were given it first. It's essentially the exact same thing as that phrase "pay it forward." If you've heard that, somebody does something kind for you and they say, "Here, yeah, but pay it forward." Like they don't expect anything in return, but they'd like you to do something nice for somebody else now without expecting something in return, and then it just, continues and it builds and it grows and it gets spread, right? And that's what the gospel is. It's essentially the phrase "pay it forward." And so in every aspect of what that means, there's only one truth. And there is only one way for certain things. That's it. So it's just crazy humbling. And it's also just like reinforcing how much of a matrix type of society we live in, just as human beings in general, across any part of the earth at any time period ever. Because, yeah, there's only one way. There really, really, really is, with things. So it's nuts, dude. It's really nuts. Because a big thing is, people are eating so much food and it's not doing anything for them because it's not actually being fully utilized. If it's not being introduced into their bodies the way that happens, the only way it does, people are drinking such an excess amount of liquid. Same thing, right? People are, anything and everything that human beings do, if they're not doing it in the only way that it actually happens, then it's a waste. And I think about doctors quite a bit because there's a lot of people in my life who seem to be going to the doctor all the time. And I don't mean this out of any kind of thing other than I understand the reasons behind these things as far as the reasons that really are the reasons behind these things. Meaning, right, anything can go into anything, but you can see things as they are when you can. Meaning, I haven't been to the doctor in like 2+ years. And I'm not trying to say that that's good or bad or right or wrong or that it's better than this person, worse than that one or whatever. But what I am saying is there's reasons that's allowed to happen regardless of who you are, right? Regardless of how like naturally quote unquote weak, we'll say, your personal immune system is, there's still things that you can do that there's only one way to do that will aid or inhibit your ability to not have to use any kind of medication in times, right? So, meaning a lot of the times I'll see people going to the doctor and taking medications for things and having like inhalers, right, where you breathe in like powder or stuff through a little tube. Asthma is a common thing they do that with. A lot of breathing type maladies, if you will. I mean, because that's the thing is, a lot of the times people will label something as asthma, but then they don't actually have that. But really what they have is such external rotation within their body to where their breathing is like their throat is always open, right? And they can't actually like keep their body working the only way that it does because of physical positioning, because of clothing, really, actually. And that's really the truth in the times that's the case for those things, right? Things like arthritis. I was thinking about this yesterday. Yes, I mean, I've been thinking about it quite a bit, but especially since I've been doing so much adjustment to my own body and just understanding the body even deeper than I did and will just continue to as deeply as I continue to when I do that. Arthritis isn't even a real thing as far as, I mean, times and places, but really it's just, yeah, what you're experiencing is real, the pain is real, the inflammation is real, but only because of, right? It's what's the reason? It's not just you label it as arthritis and you're damned to having the pain for the rest of your life and you have to try to quote unquote rely on something that is entirely unreliable because it's not actually doing anything but just kind of like addressing a symptom as far as like its surface level trying to ease some pain you're experiencing but not actually fixing the problem. But the thing is, like, releasing the bound up scar tissue and muscle within joints because they've just been tracking in an unnatural position because of clothing patterning, which is the truth and the actual reason in the times that it is, which is almost every time, that you're having arthritis symptoms. But then you just put a word on it and label it arthritis, but it's not even a real thing. Again, times and places. I'm not trying to just like entirely dismiss something that could have a real reason that's actually because of something different, right? But I know within my own personal body, right? I mean, all the knee pain that I had and the shoulder pain that I had is gone. And you could have called that arthritis because that's what it was as far as the definition of what arthritis is. But, I mean, things like cartilage within the joints of the spine, the vertebrae, between them, or within the knee joints or the elbows or the wrists or the fingers. Yeah, right? I mean, inflammation. It's not anything besides what it is, meaning there's only one way that each of the joints actually bends. And if it's not doing that, even if it's tweaked the tiniest bit out of the only way that it's designed to, as far as the neutral position, right? There's only one way that the wrist is neutral. There's only one way that the jaw is neutral. There is only one way that the pelvis is neutral. There is only one way that the spine is neutral. There is only one way that the feet are neutral and straight with that gripped arch. There is only one way that the knee can hinge in line, the way that it's designed to. There is only one way that the human body works. There actually is. There's no opinion to it. There's no genetic garbage because sure, your body can be slightly different shaped as far as the thickness of your bones or the way that you carry fat or muscle and how those two things are intertwined. And sometimes there's like, slightly different things in those kind of ways within human beings. But yes, we are all slightly individuals. But the point with there is only one way is there is. Because regardless of how tall or short or skinny or fat you are, as I discuss, the skeletal system is just a machine that's designed the exact same across every single human. And you can have deformities and whatever, but right, times and places, as I say. But there's only one way. There is only one way. So the point is, you can have all the claims that you want that you have arthritis and it's because of X, Y, Z, and Q, and you can label it as whatever you want. You can blame it on whatever you want. You can attribute it to whatever you want. But if you're not allowing your body to be in its only neutral position to start at, right? And then we move out of that position from there and do things, but then always come back to its only neutral in every joint, then your words are absolutely, there's no, I want to say that your words are void because, yeah, it's entirely a false claim to say that you have arthritis when you're not allowing your body to do the only thing that it does. I mean, it's like having a car and putting orange juice in the gas tank and claiming that it has a problem that is entirely its fault. And you have put something in there that is not the only fuel that causes that engine to operate, right? You can tie your shoes unevenly and have your whole body twisted and complain that you have what you want to label as arthritis when you are not letting your body work in the only way that it actually does, which is even and centered and neutral, right? So there is only one way. Period. No opinion. No opinion that anybody could have, because we didn't design it. We didn't design the human body. We didn't design the earth. We didn't really do much of anything. We're just here to learn how it works. And as I've said, I was 24 years old when I started to actually really, really know how my own body works. And most of us human beings in general just don't know how the only thing that is actually ours even operates. Our human flesh. And that's weird. That's what I was saying a few minutes ago about it's crazy how we're allowed to do these kind of things, right? We're allowed to be that far off. But we are, somehow, for some reason. It is a really strange thing for me to look at like that. Like, why? And I understand why, right? It's because we're here to rely on the only one that actually knows the only way. And he is the way, the truth, and the life. Jesus the Christ. The truth of all things. There you go, right? Don't believe me. But what I love to see is if I were to go up there to Alaska and I noticed that some man was tying his shoes incorrect. It could be a woman, but I'm just picturing like a hardworking man, right? Traditionally, I mean, you just got a man who's doing physical manual labor, and women can do that as well. I'm just saying what I observed within the show, and he can deny it all he wants, but you're denying the only truth that there is about your shoes lacing and your own physical body. And so, cool, but that's when we damn ourselves to hell. Really. I've discussed this before, but hell is just the world, right? There's a very distinct separation between the earth that our God created for us and our man-made world that we as human beings have made up. Truly. And so, yeah, damned to hell, right? It's not swearing if you think that that's swears. No. That's damned means well, I've discussed this a little bit within the Image Clothing Company podcast, but it's like a river, right? A river flows, and if you put a blockage in the water's flow, you have dammed the river. There's a river dam. Beavers are an animal that builds dams out of wood. That's what it is, like stopping something in its tracks, basically. Determining something as this thing, and this is what it is and where it's stuck now, right? That is being damned, and then hell is really just the earth. Well, hold on. The world, right? On our earth, we now have this man-made society that we have as human beings. And that's another thing that this Alaskan show is really showing me, is these people that they're filming, they live by themselves. As I mentioned, it was just it's what they show, at least so far, what I've seen within it is just either individuals or a couple, or this other one's a family with some kids. And in some of their cases, they're the only human being within hundreds of miles on the earth. And they live out there on the land, off of the land, as far as they eat just what they can get. And they just stay warm because they build a fire. They build their own shelter. They're entirely determined by our God and how the weather changes and the earth does its thing. And when you're in a situation like that, you can see what's real, because any and every one of us could get in that situation somehow, for any reason. That could happen to any one of us, no matter where you've grown up at or what you think that life is. That's what I mean. There is only one way. There is only one truth. There is only one reality. And we only have this one earth as human beings. So you can grow up in a really busy city in any part of the earth with a lot of technology, or you can grow up in the opposite end and be closer to like these humans that I'm being able to see within this show. And no matter what, there's only one real Earth. And we're all on the same one. And it will always be what it is. It changes the way it looks and things, but it does that regardless of if we're here or not as human beings. There is only one way. There is only one truth. There is only one. The one. Which is kind of paradoxical because it's the Holy Trinity. The Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. Right? The Holy Spirit of our living God. Him, himself, the Almighty Being, and then him in us form. Taking the form of a human being. Jesus the Christ, the man who came. So yeah, there is three, but there's also only one. It's him, himself. The truth of all things. The gospel of Jesus Christ. There is only one way, and it's him. So the beauty of that comparison between like a busy city and then living out where there's no other human being for many hundreds of miles, you're still the same thing. The earth is still the same thing. There still is only the truth that there is. And within the show that I'm referencing, one of the people that they're filming, he lives entirely alone. And he has lived in London and New York, which is within the United States of America. And those are both quite big cities. And now he's the only human being for quite a long way. And sometimes he spends months. He mentioned it was like 4+ months he went without seeing another human being, living where he currently does. And nothing changes, whether he's in the biggest city on the earth at the time, or he's in that little, I'm not sure the exact measurements, but like 10 by 8 cabin that he lives in. 10 foot by 8 foot cabin, maybe, right? Just a small little building by himself. He's still just what he is. Our God is just the exact same, always, before we even were a thought, right? However that could be worded. So, there is only one way. There's a dog barking out this window behind me. So, there we go. And that's why it's kind of weird to walk around or drive around in a vehicle or do whatever you do, and you see the earth and you see the world and you see the separation between the two, and you see people get so caught up on the world, and it's silly because it's a blink, it's a blip, it's there and it's gone. But so is our entire lives. But our lives don't determine truth, and we don't really matter. That can sound real dark real quick, but actually that's the most beautiful thing to see, is we don't. And our God still loves us perfectly. Crazy. Absolutely crazy. That's what we got to realize, is that we don't matter. And look at that in a good way. Because that's the thing, is if this one man, specifically the last one that I was speaking about, who lives entirely alone out here. In Alaska, they've got grizzly bears, which is a type of brown bear. They've got black bears. They've got wolves. They've got wolverines. They've got a lot of predators. Animals, predatorial animals that will just eat because they're hungry, and they'll just kill because that's what they're actually placed here on this earth to do, so that everything has a balance and a cycle and just is what it does. So this one human being could think that he is like the most important thing on the earth and get eaten by a bear or a wolf. And now what? What if nobody even knew? For months, for years, or forever? What if he was never thought about again, since the last time somebody saw him before he got eaten by an animal that was here before he was and will be here after he was? There is only one way. There is only one truth. We really don't matter. But our God does. So, thinking about things like that, and then you hear what I say, being the founder of In the Image Clothing Company, and I say some pretty bold things like, there is only one way you can actually tie your shoes to get your body to work. And you might be like, what are you talking about? You're so weird. You really think you can tell me something? Well, yes, I do. Because it got told to me by my God. It's not about me. There's only one truth. There's only one way. That's it. It's apart from all of us. And we're a part, as in connected to it, regardless of what we do. I mean, yeah, we can do things that cause us to be out of the presence of our God, but it doesn't change Him. It doesn't change anything besides our ability to feel okay. That's crazy. So, there's only one way. There is only one way. We say some pretty bold things. I have up until this point as the founder of In the Image Clothing Company. As the company grows, as we bring people on the team, we're going to say things that are shocking to some people, but I don't care. Because if it's true, it's true. And it's not because of me. Nor could it ever be because of me. So, there is only one way. Okay. I love that. I want to express my gratitude to be able to know that. Because there were times in my life where I just thought I could believe whatever I wanted. And now I don't believe in anything. Because there's only one truth. You can be out there in the Alaskan wilderness and believe whatever you want about whatever you want out there. But it doesn't change what's true about where you are and what you are in the grand scheme of all of it. Within our man-made societies, down in our cities, right? Up in our cities, scraping the sky in these buildings, right? We can get to thinking that our heads are bigger than the room we're in, meaning we can be very self-centered and think that we matter, and we don't. And that's a good thing that we don't. And it's the truth that we don't. But there are things that we can do as far as very large positive benefits that we can be the deliverer of and the vessel of to allow to happen. So we matter in the sense of how willing are we to be used as a vessel for our God to do what He needs done. And that's all that we actually are worth. And don't let that discourage you. Let that encourage you. And don't believe me on that, but it is the truth. Those aren't my words. This is not me talking, but I want somebody to hear me because of my words. I want you to know the truth that is there no matter what. Because at the end of the day, you're going to die. And there's only one way, right? To remedy that situation. To actually have eternal life. We have to die first. There's some prerequisites. In the Image Clothing Company's shoelacing technique, tying your shoes evenly over toward the inside and removing all tags. That's in the Image Clothing Company's 2 prerequisites, in addition to just allowing clothing to sit where the body works, which is something we didn't decide, right? There's only one way the body works. But there's some prerequisites to eternal life, and one of those is death. And that's a good thing. Another one of those things, you can avoid it all you want. You can believe that you will live forever before you die, but it will not happen. Every human dies. But then we get to live forever after we die. And you don't have to believe that for it to be true. But regardless if you believe it or not, or whatever, we won't actually fully know out of personal experience until we die first. So there's only one truth. There is only one way. That's it. That's it. He is it. He is all. There is only one way. It's humbling. And I need to be humbled because I'm quite prideful. It's a human being trait. So I got a few people that I know who are those things, human beings. We're all the same. So, yes. Okay, thank you. Today is the 29th of January, 2025. My name is Evan Strong, the founder of In the Image Clothing Company, this here company that you are hearing this podcast from. We will have clothing available to do, as I'm discussing, the only way. Meaning, our clothing will allow the human body to just function the only way that it does. There is only one way. The body eats, the body sleeps, the body stands, the body walks. Everything that it does, in any kind of way, at all. Period. Forever. No matter what we try to do as human beings, because we didn't design it. So our clothing will do that. Staying centered, fitting correct, allowing the body to work are the things that I say. 100% natural materials is what it will be made out of, because that's what we are as human beings, is we're 100% natural for the most part, until we try to alter our bodies and do things to them to make them work in ways that are not the only way that they work. And then there's always complications. So yeah, I mean, you can do whatever you want. And that's what I've been saying is the weird thing about being a human being. But there's complications to it. And it only lasts so long. But there is only one eternal truth. Yesterday, today, and forever. Our living God, Jesus the Christ. So, I'd like to invite everybody, and you don't got to do it, but it is the only way to actually have lasting, eternal joy. To actually have an understanding of what this place is that we're all in as far as the existence that we have as human beings on this earth. The Book of Mormon, the Holy Bible. Records, historical events, truth, the only truth of the only thing that there actually is. Our living God, Jesus Christ. These are books that we can read. If you don't have access where you currently are, then what you do have access to, any and every and all ways and wheres, is prayer, direct communication to our living God. The only way is Him. And it doesn't have to look any certain way besides addressing Him. Because He knows you, and He would love you to get to know Him. And it's not like a first-time meeting, but it's a remembrance. Because we are His children. But we come to this earth, and we get what's called a veil placed between us, as a bride wears on her wedding day, that thing that covers her face. We get a veil placed, a screen, if you will, like you're watching a play and they pull those curtains closed. Heaven, our God Himself, is on the other side of those curtains, and we are in the audience, in a sense, or vice versa, however you're trying to see it. Point being, we pass through that curtain, and it gets closed behind us. And we have the ability to remember what's on the other side of that curtain. The only truth that there is. We're just partially blinded from it for this probationary state that is our earthly life. So, how you will get to know Jesus Christ is the way that's the most authentic to you. The written records that you can read are the ones that I mentioned. And that's it. As far as He is who He says He is, we don't get to determine it or to decide it. There is only one way that He is. And there's only one way that we actually are, because He created us. So you can think you are whatever you want to think that you are. You can try to be whatever you want to think that you can try to be. But there is only one you. As you are, not anything that you decide. There is only one way. It's unreal to be able to do this, to be able to sit here right now on this floor, to be able to be out of employment for over 2 years now and be provided for and taken care of. To be able to go through all the transitions and transformations and things that I have physically and in every way that I have as the human fleshly avatar that I am, Evan Strong. It's crazy that we get the opportunities that we do. The opportunity is to go through such hardships that we never would have wanted to, but they teach us so much. But there's only one way, and it's carved and paved for us before we had the chance to go through it. Our living God knows everything from the beginning and the end before it happens, and he's the one that's making it happen. There is only one way, and we have the ability to know it. And I'm grateful for what I have been allowed to know up until this point in my journey here, and I'm grateful that I'm able to share. I want to help. I keep saying that. I keep just praying, Father, I want to help. I want to help, Father. I want to help. I want to help. I want to help. Because I'm not worthy of receiving these things, but yet I am receiving these things. And these things are what they are for eternity. So I'd like to share them with others if and where and when it's the right thing to do. So that's what I'm doing in this episode 49 of In the Image Clothing Company podcast, titled, There Is Only One Way. So, thank you. I'm not going to cut it yet. I thought I was. But that's what I mean. There's only one way that we're supposed to do everything that we do, and we don't get to decide it. If we're actually open to it, and that's what's strange about it, is we can go through our lives and do whatever we want to do, but there's only one way that things will actually work smooth. There's only one way that things will actually work out. You know how sometimes you feel like you're just fighting something and fighting something and fighting something and fighting something, and you want it to happen so badly, but it doesn't seem like it would ever work, and it couldn't ever work, it seems as though, and you don't really know exactly why. It's because you're opposing the only way, because there is only one. And we do have individual plans and journeys here that are laid out for us, as I was discussing right before I tried to cut this, and it didn't work, because that wasn't what was supposed to happen. And that's real. There is only one way. Yeah. Forever and for always, and even in the times when you're all mad and upset and putting your foot down and doing things quote unquote your way, and then it a lot of times just makes you more frustrated because it doesn't work still, and then it's like you're fighting something that you can't win because you're fighting against an almighty God. When you're deliberately, or me, I've done it, that's what I'm saying, any of us, going against what we know we're supposed to be doing. It's like trying to swim up river. There's only one way that water flows, downhill. You know, I mean, there's like certain little fluke things and things that can, you know, be a little bit different for certain reasons, but all rivers flow downhill. Oceans are just water that has come from high points down to lower ones. Lakes, ponds, they all come from streams and pathways from a higher point to a lower one. There's only one way that happens. You're not going to get water to flow uphill just because you, out of your own human flesh, think that you want it to. Now, our God can move mountains, literally, and cause anything to happen, but we are not him. We're able to know him, though. Yeah. It's crazy. Yeah. So, there's only one way. There is only one way. That's why the key word is allow within the human body, within In the Image Clothing Company, within what we discuss here. It's already going to do it the only way that it's going to. We just got to let it. Our lives have a plan, as I've been saying. And we just have to allow that to unfold without getting in our own ways. Because the way that it's going to happen isn't ours. Yeah. Yep. And that's what happens is when you give your life over to Christ, things start happening. You start to feel lighter, physically lighter, emotionally lighter. You feel like you can actually accomplish things, and you feel like things are actually mattering that you're doing. And in the past, you would potentially, be doing a lot that you wanted to do, and it didn't seem like it mattered, no matter what you achieved or experienced or accomplished. Because if you were doing it out of what you wanted, it doesn't matter, because we don't. But if we're doing all that we can do to glorify our God, within our sinful by nature mistakes, because we will make them till the day that we are no longer these human being things that we are, that's when we start to get fulfillment. And when things start to actually happen and life starts to bloom and blossom, take off, and that's when you see these people that go from one thing to seemingly an entirely different one. But really what they've done is become who they are. And the only way that happens is through Jesus Christ. Don't believe me, please. But pray to him. There is only one way. You want to beat your addictions? There is only one way. And that way is Jesus Christ. You want to be a good father, a good mother, a good anything that you're trying at, that you feel like you should be doing, but it doesn't quite seem to work. The only way is to incorporate Jesus the Christ in everything and anything and all things that we do in our lives. That's one thing you can't deny. No matter who you are, what your background is, your upbringing, or your view on what it means to be a quote-unquote Christian, no human being can deny that devoted Christians, within all their mistakes, have a life that looks different than any other human being outside of that. Because it's the truth. Don't believe me. But it's not because of me. So it doesn't matter if you believe me. Don't believe in anything and see what happens. Okay. Thank you.